Black woman, mother of four, military veteran, and a wife. Hello, and welcome to the RealRam fam. On my channel, I intend to provide you with a safe platform to discuss the intersections of your entire being, to be able to be comfortable in your own skin, mission, or position. There is no one like you, and we all have a purpose. I, for one, mother of four, military veteran, and a wife, and a social worker, just to name a few. From my channel, I hope that you learn more about military families and social workers. 3 of the social work values are my aim in each video: importance of human relationships, dignity and worth of the person, and social justice. No matter what you initially think when you hear social worker, there is more to the profession. Trust me. Stay locked in by subscribing to the channel, and be sure that you hit that notifications bell so you don't miss any new uploads. Without further ado, on to today's episode. Hello, and welcome. So, with all of that, I apologize everyone for being late today. Thanks for bearing with us. So today I have with me another panel of military spouses. And so before we begin, I have a new question for everyone, and that is, what is your birth order? And so there's the thing, about people's birth orders and what makes your personality. And so I have another visual aid to share with you. Hopefully, bear with me. Hopefully this pulls up. Okay, so this is what it said about birth orders. And so, Miss Jean and Brandy, what is you guys' birth order? And do any of these characteristics happen to fall under you?
I'm firstborn.
Same here. I'm firstborn.
Firstborn. All of this. Has anyone told you that these characteristics actually fall under you? Do they fit?
Probably.
Depends on the situation.
Yeah, that's a better answer.
But mostly accurate.
Yeah.
And then, so I am my mother's only child, and a lot of these fit. But I'm my father's middle. I'm not. I don't know. I'm independent, but I think that just falls under my only child. I think this falls under me being the only child. So, yes. So
interesting.
Yes. So without further ado, today we want to continue our conversation about military families and what people seem to think when they hear about it. You can introduce yourself, reintroduce.
Did you say me? It was kind of broke up a little bit. It froze. And I'm going to see. Oh, excuse me.
Bless you. Bless you.
Thank you. Did you say me to introduce myself?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And
then
it
Brandy.
It broke up. Okay. So I am Jean.
I hope it stops soon.
Yeah. And I have been a military spouse for 22 years. And in the Marine Corps, with my husband deploying multiple times, and he's a wounded vet from 2004. Was wounded in Fallujah, and don't know what else to say. Background is lobbying and real estate and education. So, but since being a spouse in the Marine Corps, my focus, because the war had just started, my focus was being a support to other families, to the families. So that's what And now I'm co-founder with Safe Military Housing.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And Brandy, you could reintroduce yourself. Well, this is a new episode.
So my name is Brandy.
Yourself to the people.
So I have been an Air Force spouse for 7 years, but grew up in a military family. I go to college at Liberty University, and I'm also a key spouse for U.S. Air Force Honor Guard. And then I also work with Jean as the Director of Media and Public Relations for SMHI. So helping military families is a big one.
All right. So before we get started, I'm not going to share a screen because I don't want to mess up the internet again. Before we get started, I want to try to define again the difference between full-time and part-time military. In the part-time, there's the reservist and the guard, which everyone nowadays is definitely starting to hear about the guard. Okay. The reservists are part-time service members, which allows them to pursue a civilian career or college education while simultaneously serving their country. They attend boot camp and are required to do training drills 1 weekend a month, as well as do a 2-week program each month. National Guard consists of the Army National Guard and the Air National Guard. Each U.S. state and territory, as well as the District of Columbia, fields their own separate guard unit, which operates distinctly and separately from the others. The Guard's focus is on homeland security and humanitarian relief. In addition to training drills 1 weekend a month and 2 full weeks a year, the National Guard units assist in their communities during emergencies like storms, floods, fires, and other natural disasters. So I hope that sums it up for everyone out there between the difference. And Randy last time was with us and told us that her husband has done all 3 components. And so with all of that being said, and that the guard is being pulled in right now to assist with what is going on here, Brandy, if your husband was currently in the guard, what would you be going through right now? And what is he, actually, let's just word it this way. With your experience as a guard wife, what is going on? And tell us what the spouses are going through.
So when you're in the guard and you're automatically activated, it's very, very quickly. Example. So when my husband was in the guard, he was on a team called FSERT, which is Fatality Search and Recovery. And he was actually in Oregon when OSO happened, the landslide that happened in Washington State a few years back. And I get a call. Next thing I know, he's in Washington. He's on orders, and I don't know what's happening. And I was expecting him to be gone for just a short amount of time, and he was actually gone for a lot longer. It's kind of active duty to where if they get put on a last minute order, they could be gone within a month, a couple weeks. But when you're called in the guard, you're gone no more, inactive within 24 hours or less. So it can be stressful because sometimes you don't know exactly what's going on. And they have to make sure they get all their paperwork ready, because what happens is that their titles may change. So in the guard, you're Title 32, but if you're called by the state, sometimes what happens then is you get put on Title 10, like active duty. It depends on the situation and how long. So for instance, when the guard's called, it just depends on the situation, but it's really quick. And you just don't know really when it's going to end right away. It's kind of a maybe or somewhat of a response. So it's just, you kind of have to prepare yourself for anything.
Yeah. And so with this situation, I would say that it was quick. And
very quick.
publicly, they're saying, how long that this is going to last.
Yeah.
But okay, I'm trying to also question you as a civilian. So they're saying that the guard is going to be activated, but we know that that's going to depend on what happens and how long this is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
could you tell us how long could they possibly be? They were told, let's just say, you know, the husband is the spouse is told, we're going to deploy you to Washington, D.C. to go assist with this to the end of the, what is it, through January 22nd. And
Mm-hmm.
then something happens or whatever. How does that play out?
Usually if they give kind of an end date, that's a rough ballpark. You can't really have a definitive answer because you can't predict the outcome of any situation. So you can, because you always have to have a start and end date really on orders. But those may be extended just like a deployment. So you just rough guess it, and hopefully you just kind of wish for the best, and hopefully it's done when they say it's going to be done. So that's where guard families just have to really be prepared for anything. And I would say that's a little bit difference between active duty and guard, because guard could be called up at any time. They're constantly ready. They're not just a week and a month, 2 weeks a year. They're constantly going still throughout the month, just in a different capacity because they're under state first and Homeland Response. And their duty is to the state first. So that's where it's different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Ms. Jean, do you have any input as far as Guard, Reserve, and active duty, just to help like clarify?
Actually, I don't.
Okay.
It's foreign to me. Yeah, but and it's certainly different. And I know it's a rapid response with not a lot of notice sometimes, you know, which isn't the way it is in the Marine Corps. You work up to your deployments, and you generally have quite a bit of time. So this is foreign to me.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so we talked about finances a bit last time, and I want to revisit finances because people seem to believe that we have a lot of money. And specifically what I did write down, right? Because we said that people should differentiate that we're wealthy when actually what we are is stable.
That's good.
Yes, ma'am. And but what I wrote down with that is they think that we have better shopping, we don't pay taxes, but oh no. What I'm writing down is that it's not necessarily better shopping. We may or may not pay taxes. That's to be discussed, right? And then we pay our own salaries. Well, they pay their own salary, and that BAH fluctuates depending on where you live. So I will let you start with that, Miss Jean, talking about that with the finances.
Well, in terms of the misconceptions that people have, yeah, I think thinking that your housing is free is a big misconception, um, and and I think one of the other aspects of uh, what we end up having to pay because we are moving all the time, the cost of moving is something that's rarely considered, how that impacts us. It is whether it's the lost furniture or the fact that the money that you get for the move never completely covers, you know, the move across country or whatever it is. And then you have the loss of your food goods because you never can plan out finishing up what's in your refrigerator, your freezer, and that usually runs into the hundreds of dollars that you're giving away because you can't haul it off. All the open containers you can't take, all the cleaning supplies you have to reestablish the next place you move. I mean, it's like, I've never actually calculated. I just know that it's expensive, and you know, I can't imagine what it's like for, you know, the junior enlisted, because their pay is really minimal. The other thing that I think people misunderstand or don't realize is that we pay taxes, you know, which to me has always been has been a burn, because it's like, why are we paying taxes? I mean, they're probably the one profession that shouldn't be paying taxes, when you consider that really the salary really doesn't compare to the responsibility or the commitment of time that everyone has. I mean, it's a, especially in the Marine Corps, they tell you you're seven, you know, 24/7, and you know, and they own you 24/7, and you know, whether you want to go for a vacation for the weekend or whatever it is, it's all with permission. I mean, so there really is a misconception about what kind of money we get, what it's committed to, and what the cost of living really is for us. So you've got to reset yourself with new deposits if you're not living on base, you know, hoping you're going to get those deposits back, whether that's, you know, for lease deposits. So you're always, I mean, I just don't know how you actually do stay ahead unless you're a two family income, you know. It's actually a very expensive life. So.
Right. Brandy.
Mhm.
I wasn't even thinking about all of that. The stuff I wasn't even thinking about that. I was just thinking about the fact that BAH is not the same in every state. But you brought up some good stuff.
It's a burn.
Yes,
It's a
ma'am.
burn.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah. And TMO, you know, moving, like Jean said, they can't take a propane tank on. They can't take cleaning supplies or anything like that. They can take, when it comes to food, if it's boxed up and dried and it's in a box, they can take, but they can't take anything else because it'll perish. You know, and people don't realize too, in the military base, you have your move out costs that you can be charged with housing. And
Move out
that's
charges.
something
Oh
that
yeah.
isn't, oh yeah. And that's something that can be very, I don't want to say sketchy, but it can be a hard burden, especially for the younger airmen, younger enlisted, you know, to where you're automatically charged for carpet cleaning. Well, that's a couple $100 right there, just in a loan that you did not get compensated back for. So that's where, you know, it's like when we pay taxes, but we don't get paid a lot at all. And when you calculate it out, I mean, you have to put in some serious time, sometimes over 20 years, to really make the difference if you have one income. And sometimes, depending on what's going on in the family, it could only be one income right now. Another spouse may not be able to get a job because they're going to full-time school, or they have kids, or they're trying to balance in a way where they know they could handle it, but then still not get into it like a depression state. So it's really, you know, it's a lot of compromise. It's a lot of give and take. But finances is a big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that and this, whether or not the spouse can find another job where they move to.
Yeah.
It's, yeah, you're starting all over again. Reapplying for jobs, getting recertified in the next state, and they're working on a lot of that. A lot of that is changing, but you're still having to recertify. Can't tell you how many times I had to recertify going to another state, you know. So that's a whole nother expense as well.
Yep. Yeah. So y'all hitting the other side of my list. Y'all hitting the cons.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
we can jump right in, because the first one on there is stability, with our emotional stability, as well as we're not geographically and physically stable. All of those things would be a con to being in the military.
Mhm.
So, so we talked about, you
Yeah.
know, the emotional a little bit.
Mhm.
And the positive is, you're right, that is the stability, which is huge.
Mhm.
You know you're going to get paid. You know that, you know, it doesn't matter what happens to the government, really. You know, they're going to make sure that the military gets paid. And so we don't have to worry about, you know, job security is there as long as we're in the military, as long as we get to reenlist, you
Yeah.
know, and then you do have, you know, other benefits that come along with, you know, educational benefits and things like that. But
Mhm. I think sometimes with the give and take with it is, we are stable, and even when it comes to like our insurance, if
Mhm.
not a lot of people realize too, our insurances can be one of three ways. You have TRICARE Prime, which is full coverage, active duty. Then you can, as active duty, you could go to what is TRICARE Standard, which is where you can see then an off-base doctor without having to get a referral. You may have a copay, but then with the Guard and Reserve, you have Reserve Select, which is kind of like standard, but there may just be a higher copay. So with active duty, you do have some stability, but when you balance everything out, there's a lot of give. And there's a lot of things that are missed that it'd be almost better to where we would maybe better off doing copays and getting paid more versus having full coverage. Or, I mean, it just depends on the situation.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of things that are overlooked.
Yeah. So I'm gonna drop down to insurance and check that off.
that, I mean,
You're just
Yeah.
flowing.
the medical is huge.
Yes, it is.
Oh my
It is.
gosh. I mean, I don't know where we would be with all the surgeries our boys had, from football injuries and, you know, hand reconstruction, knees, you know, any number of things, my own stuff. I mean, I don't know how families afford, you know, random medical conditions.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because that is the huge plus.
It definitely is, but it's, you know, it still comes with the fact that the spouse is 24/7 and they could just, all right, I'm sending you here and there where you don't want to live and go do a job you don't want to do. But even with that, like Brandy started hitting on copays, there's still copays because the spouse, the dependents, we're not completely free all the time. That's mostly for the service member.
Mhm.
And so my last two children, they're 7 and 5. My husband we had to pay a little bit for the bed. That was on the military base. One was born on Fort Belvoir and the other one was born at Womack in Missouri. And we had to pay a little bit for the bed stay. So I don't know what they're doing today, but yeah, we're not
What do
completely
you mean?
100%.
Had to pay
They
for
would
what?
charge us a fee. Like, you know how you have your baby and it used to be just free. You just get your baby, you get your medication and all that. So just like civilians have to pay for, you know, anesthesia, the bed, the food, all of that. They charged us. At least
Wow.
the best. It wasn't a lot, right? Because we're military. I
Right.
think we had to pay a total of like $7 at the
Oh,
end. But we still had to pay something that we didn't have to
weren't
pay 14
expected.
years
Yeah.
ago. Yeah. So that's one thing. And then in addition to that, even with our insurance, there's certain places that don't want to do business with our insurance. People don't want to
Oh,
deal with
yeah.
TRICARE and Humana.
No,
Yeah.
it's like CVS. They lost their contract with TRICARE, so you have to pay to go to CVS if you get prescriptions through there, and if you don't get it on base. But you have, but Walgreens takes TRICARE. So and that's actually talking about a difference between the branches. When you're Guard, and I believe also reserve, but I know for guard, and you're on, if you're a traditional guardsman to where you may have a civilian job and then you do the 1 weekend a month, you have TRICARE, and you can pick your doctor with TRICARE standard, and you go and see a pharmacy off base. But if you were to get in what's called a technician position on base, and your orders go over 90 days, you have to give up your TRICARE and go on federal. Even if your MOA, that's Army talk for your job description, doesn't change, you're not going into a different career field where you're all of a sudden your career field changes. You're still doing your same active guard job, but because you're in a technician position, you automatically have to give up TRICARE. And my husband and I are put in a position to where he just got put on temporary orders, but because it was with a different squadron, if it didn't end before 90 days, we give up our TRICARE. And I was going through surgery at the time, so he had to end the orders in 90 days. So we had to choose between our coverage or him having a job, and I needed the surgery.
Wow.
So that's where it could be difficult for the guard. The only way they continue their TRICARE is if they're on AGR orders, which is active guard reserve, and that's like active duty, where they're up there working every single day. That's the only way they could keep their TRICARE, which doesn't make sense to me because they're still military members and they should be able to keep it.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That I guess would that be where the civilian job comes in? So when in their civilian job and then they get called to active duty, or even when they go out on 30-day, 90-day drills or whatever, how does the civilian insurance do? Do they say now that you're active, we don't cover you?
So usually when someone's a traditional guardsman, but they also have a civilian job, they could choose either or. So say that one spouse is traditional guardsman, and then another spouse is civilian and they have a job. And then the guardsman has a civilian job outside of the guard. He can choose whether or not to take and make his job's insurance like a secondary, or he doesn't have to have that because he's already covered under TRICARE. So mostly what happens is the civilian job becomes secondary. So if they get actually by law, if they get called out automatically to, to do stuff like what's going on right now in DC, the job, they can't lose their job. They can't lose all that insurance just because they get called out on orders, because it's government, appointed. It's just like if they go on deployment, they get that job when they come back. And so you don't lose, but becomes secondary, or the person may decide to just go with other insurance. So you're just double covered.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have a question. What are our thoughts on this current situation? Soldier spouses and vets storming the Capitol.
I think that's kind of a tough thing to answer, really, because that's kind of hitting something where, it's unexcusable for what happened, regardless of if you're a vet or not. I think it's, I did see some clips where some people, actually one person was wearing some camo gear and some military gear. I don't know that person. I don't know anybody that starts, so I can't say if they exactly were, if they got that stuff at an army. I'm sure there were veterans and stuff. I mean, I can't speak for them because I'm not them, so I don't know what they thought. I think it was irresponsible and not right what happened. That's what I do say. And I think that it should have been differently, but inexcusable. So if you're a veteran or not, that's I mean, common sense is what I'd like to say. And common sense tells you not to do something like that. But free will happens, and if you make that decision, accept the consequence.
Yeah. Yep. Miss Jean, do you have a response?
Well, if they're active duty participating, there are ramifications, because when you take your oath, you really are not supposed to be politically active. So, I mean, it's not that you can't vote. It's not that you don't have your party preferences, but so if there were active duty people on the Hill, there certainly are going to be consequences through the services, for their actions. For the, retired vets, to me, that's no different really than any other civilian. They've served their time and they are a civilian, and they made a personal choice. But in terms of participating, anyone, I don't care who it is, that participated in destruction of property and invading government property like that, I mean, there are laws and consequences for that. I don't care, who you are or what you've been. That's a violation of the law. So.
And I agree with both of you have said. My only little personal feeling is too many people were tied to Air Force.
Oh, were there?
Other than that, I agree with everything. Yes, a lot of people have been. There's been Air Force vet, Air Force this, Air Force that. I only saw.
Is that right? I didn't know.
Yeah, but I totally agree. Okay, so with what hit, we got a comment. No one is above the law.
Yep, exactly.
So with the comment, what you did say, this shows the difference. This shows the fact that each branch is different. That you stated that if you're active duty, you shouldn't be politically active. For Air Force, you can be politically active. You can go be in protest and go be in all of that. You can't be in uniform. So
that's true.
I have neighbors who have said what you have said. So can you explain for the viewers, what is the Marine policy? Because obviously it must be different.
No, I agree. I mean, you're right. You cannot be in uniform, but if you get arrested, and you're an active duty Marine, you still, that has consequences on your Marine career. That has consequences on, depending upon what you did. If you committed a crime, I'm sorry, that's going to impact, how, and the consequences that you're going to have, from the Marine Corps. So, they, yeah.
It's kind of like, with the Air Force, they don't discourage you, because they say, you have every right to go and protest, to free speech, that kind of stuff. But if you are active duty and you do something stupid, there's consequences, and that affects your active career. And that, depending on what it is and how severe it is, you have some big consequences. And it's not that it's saying, well, if you do this, then this. But I mean, at the military, there's this, we're military. We're able to express, we're able to say how we feel. But just like in anything you do, regardless if it's a protest or not, if you don't have your uniform right, you get written up.
Right.
It just depends.
Yeah. So Ms. Jean, earlier you said, when we were talking about finances, especially for the junior enlisted. So are you a spouse of a senior enlisted or a spouse of an officer?
Senior enlisted.
Senior
I mean,
enlisted.
senior officer.
Senior officer.
Senior officer. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
was not
Probably
correct
laughing like,
Yeah.
Sorry, I have an interruption. You all this y'all can talk about housing maintenance.
Oh my gosh.
I have yeah, attend to someone.
so Gene, about maintenance and some of the issues we deal with.
Oh my goodness. That is, of course, what we're dealing with right now, right? Is
Yeah.
failure to maintain, why it's happened, what are the consequences and the impact on families. We don't, as military living on base, we don't have the same access to resources to address the issues. We don't have access to, the EPA, CDC, NIH, Health and Human Services. We can't just call them in if we have situations in our home that warrants it. We can't just call in, our own Serve Pro or remediation company. We're restricted in that way, and we also don't have due process. So, and we don't have the landlord-tenant law that we can rely on to assist us, when maintenance is not provided. So we're supposed to be, military housing is supposed to be under state law, but it's very muddled between the whole government jurisdiction, the contracts between the privatized housing, and there's also the complexity of when the contracts were written, what pieces that the DoD and the military branches actually reserve for their piece of the oversight and their piece of having made decisions that impact the ability of the budget of the PPV. So it's really quite complex because privatized companies cannot, they have to operate strictly off the BA. They can't infuse their own funds, their own profits from their corporate headquarters. They can't shuffle money around between one base where they might be in the black over to another base where they might have a greater need for remediation or for construction issues or maintenance. So they don't, and all of the budget is really approved by the services. So they don't really operate as an independent for-profit. Till recently, they couldn't even refinance their debt because it violated OMB regulations. There's just, it's a very complex financial arrangement that impacts the families negatively because of the constraint on financial resources and in the family's ability to have access to alternatives. So that's on the housing side.
Yeah. That's pretty much all I wrote down about that. You hit it all. That's the only other thing about maintenance is that our stuff will get fixed when it gets fixed, really.
Yeah. Well,
and
they use, oh,
Have
sorry.
a lot of patience and low expectations, unfortunately.
Yeah. And they use, and unfortunately with these homes, they use the cheapest material. So when it comes to like flooring, I mean, it's pretty much you get it in there, it lasts for a few years, and then it's time to clean it or get it replaced. And that could be a struggle too. And the problem is depending on the contract, I mean, sometimes they go with the cheapest contract. So the quality of the work is definitely different. And it's hard too as a family because you live in a home and you want to help fix it up. but you can't. So, and some of the work you feel that you can do yourself and maybe even better, you can't do. So you have to rely on this maintenance, but then that's always a black or white situation, because some of them do know how to do their job and they do it right. And then some of them just don't know. And you wonder why you're here. And it's hard.
Yeah. Or like recently, when they come, they talk to you as if you don't know what is going on. Now,
yeah.
I don't really recall that happening to me when I lived off base, but if I'm telling you that this particular thing isn't working, you cannot come back to me and say, but this is just normal. That's just how it works. No, it doesn't. I know that that's not how this particular item is supposed to work. I just need you to come over here and fix it. I don't need your commentary about this and that. I'm telling you, this is the problem. Figure out what the problem is and fix it. Not this is how it's supposed. That's not normal. That's not normal. If we're all on Facebook saying like the same, no. Number one, I know that's not how it is. Like, you don't know what I do. I might be HVAC. I might know how an AC is supposed to work. I might know how electricity is supposed to work. I might know how plumbing is supposed to be.
I might just have common sense. I might just be a housewife that's dealt with a lot of that stuff. So, honey, I can pick a hammer up and I can, change the plumbing on a toilet, so yeah, I know. Yeah. It's, it tends to be kind of condescending and dismissive and disrespectful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And it's probably because they know a lot of people are not going to take the time to fill out that darn survey.
Survey. No. You started on the survey.
Whereas civilians.
Surveys are.
The civilian plumber, he wants to keep his reputation.
Yep.
Well,
Christine, let's talk about surveys because the surveys ties into what I do have written down also about finances and our shopping. So we probably, not everyone is taking the surveys after our maintenance and not taking surveys at the BX. We're not taking surveys at the commissary, but it ties into that people think that we have it better, but we're limited to whatever is available at our commissary and our BX, which is based upon where we live, the people who live there, and the people who complete the survey. So.
Oh yeah. And our, Utah commissary, it's a hit or miss, because most of the time that's about to expire already has expired. At least where we are, and it's disappointing. But again, it's we are but there is a lot of issues that are overlooked. These houses, some of them, you go on, the housing for a base and they show the nicest house, but they don't show the rest. So you think, oh, that's great. We see these nice houses on the road, but those aren't the majority of the homes. Majority of the homes have a lot of issues.
Yeah.
Well, you're in a subject that would take the whole hour.
Yeah.
To explain and go over all the pieces, all the systems that are broken, how the MHPI program, was just kind of a difficult merger of government and for-profit that caused neither one of them to function as efficiently as they would have. So if it was the for-profit company really could operate as a for-profit company without the restrictions of the oversight or the financial approval of budgets and the limitations of OMB, well, that it might work, but that's not true. If the privatized housing, if their incentive was based on having to um, uh, be successful landlords in order to retain renters, that might have motivated them to a higher standard. But because they have guaranteed renters, there's absolutely, it directly impacts the degree to which they have to provide service and how effective the service is, because they don't have to risk losing a tenant. They're always going to have an infusion, of tenants. So there's
Yep.
no free market motivation to really prove that you're doing quality work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
So go over to the cons side over here.
Well, we had a couple of those already.
Yeah, because
I thought we just spoke about the cons.
well,
We
yeah,
just
we
got-
did. It is. That is true. We're weaving them in together simultaneously.
Right.
But specifically, I wrote stuff down that when you're in the military, that there are more laws and limitations that are put on you. That, of course, yes, you have the UCMJ, but simple laws and rules. People are telling you what you can and what you cannot do, which we kind of talked about with the protests, right? But that's a big one. That's a big one. Simple stuff. Certain way that you can cut your hair, how many earrings you can wear, stuff like that. There's much more. So you got the UCMJ, you got state laws, you got laws on base, there's so many more rules and regulations that are put on military members and their families that I don't think people are understanding and getting. And so I'm wondering, like, from the officer side, how often has your husband had to deal with, those types of things, and how does that bother him and his peers?
Well,
Miss Jean.
my husband is retired.
Right. When he was in.
But really what happens is the higher up you go, really the more accountability. The I would say the stricter the consequences for your actions. So, for example, the higher in rank you go, you have to always be aware that of the impact of your rank, and sensitive to what would be perceived as, I guess you would call it, forced influence.
Yeah.
So that's why the higher up you go, the less political you can be. You can't demonstrate a political position because you're in a position of leadership. You don't want to be imposing a political view or a religious view. So you almost have to become even more neutral and less personal, less independent in your certainly in your ability to express your views.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers it. You are certainly under greater scrutiny and just greater consequences for your failures.
How does that, I don't know, how does that feel. I mean, of course, I know how it feels to be like restricted, but that amount, that level. I'm sorry, I gotta lock this door because they not getting it.
Behind.
That level, because yes, that is something that my husband and I have talked about. And he used the example too of, I don't know if it was a colonel or a general. This is something that he's learned in senior NCO academy. That if he walks into the squadron and he says, "Man, I'm thirsty," and so now, so let's say a civil engineer squadron. So he says that, and the next time he comes, there's a new water fountain that's been put in, simply because he said, "I'm thirsty." So of course now you got to talk to the officer and it's like, "So you got to watch what you say," because he could have just simply meant, "I just want a bottle of water. Go bring me my bottle of water."
Yeah.
So with that type of scrutiny of watching everything you say like that and having to hold so much in, what type of like pressures and extra anxieties and stuff did that ever put on your husband and peers?
Well, of course, I guess I can speak for some of it, some of the experiences, but he could never, nor I would never ask for someone to go get me a cup of coffee,
Right.
or to get me a drink. You did it on your own because you didn't want to be imposing, and you didn't want to be perceived as taking advantage for someone to, in a situation where whether you needed an extra, you're eating somewhere and someone said, "Oh, can I just go, pick something up for you?" It's like, no, you can't. You can't go buy me a cup of coffee at Starbucks. I can't have a spouse pay for a cup of coffee for me or pick up a meal. So it just gets very, very delicate because you do not want to be perceived and you do not want to be taking advantage of someone. It's different than the old days. In the old days, just like it was even in the corporate world, where the secretary went and picked up your dry cleaning and did this and did that, and maybe went and bought the flowers for your wife's birthday. But in the Marine Corps, that flip to the further up you went, the less expectation you had or could have to impose directing for personal needs. You just don't do that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you had to be extra cautious because it would be considered an abuse of power. And the same with gifts. You couldn't receive gifts. So my husband would receive a gift and he would have to pay for it. So they'd have to go out and figure out how much did that gift cost. And unbeknownst to the person who gave it, they didn't realize that my husband would have to pay for it in order to keep it. So, that's just kind of, the protocols that developed that changed over time. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
Sorry, you're a little glitchy.
Yeah, I'm not hearing anything either. Oops.
Oh, she got picked off. Oh, okay. I can I'll add to kind of, while we're waiting for her to get back on, Gina, I'll kind of add to yours too, is, it just like when you start getting higher up, it could be considered favoritism. So in the military, if you have a younger enlisted, say in the Air Force, they're considered, A1C, senior airman, staff sergeant, that's usually E1 to E5. If they were to give a gift to their senior master sergeant, and he takes it and someone sees that's in a lower ranking, they could think that that person's getting ahead because they're giving their senior, a gift versus being a friendship. Or they can't keep, unfortunately in the military, they have a lot of the times, sometimes personal came into work. And so,
Yep.
there's a lot of, it could be a lot of considered favoritism. And unfortunately, that's really hard too, because whether it's just a friendship or you could keep work and home separate. Yeah. So that's how it's difficult.
We lost you.
I'm glad y'all kept going.
We can't. We'll just keep going and talking.
I don't understand how we stay on and you disappear.
I guess because it's kind of like you're host as well, I guess. So.
Yeah. But like I was telling Jean, is that favoritism, people could see, gifts or doing stuff like that as favoritism to get like ahead in work, a good yearly review. That way your promotion's easier. Reality is just kind. But I will point out too, though, you were talking about, how do you feel about like from looks to haircuts to kind of what's expected? In the military now, they are working, like if you have a religious belief to where, you have a beard or something. I know now the military is trying to work with that. But at the same time, too, it's also the military, and there is a standard, and you would think you would read up and do your information on it before you join, that you have to have your hair a certain way. And I don't know if it's just a look or it's tradition or if it's that kind of stuff. But, it can be a struggle for some airmen coming in and, continually getting their hair cut every single week. But it is what's expected. And it's kind of, you joined this career, you have to keep your uniform up, you have to keep your hair cut clean, present. So it's kind of that, research. It's kind of like with any job, even the civilian world, depending on what you do, there's a width, there's a look, and it's, if you decide to choose this as a career, that's what comes with it as well. So it's kind of that, there's two sides.
So the issue with that, and I don't know if you kept your husband is still active currently, right? Well, yeah, the honor guard. So the issue with that is, have you noticed that each branch, and especially the Air Force, lately has come to the realization of, number one, how racist they are, but also how their standards cannot be met by everybody. So even that standard of shaving, when I was in, and even like still throughout my husband's career, right, this whole shaving waiver thing is an issue. Black men cannot shave the same way that the white man can. And so when you're getting in trouble for your shaving and people don't understand that, they don't understand how to take care of black skin. So it's not simply having to do your research, because you can research, black men know that, you're supposed to keep your hair cut low, you're supposed to keep shaved, you're supposed to do all of that. But if you're going to get in trouble because they don't understand under, ingrown hairs are an issue for people of color, now we
Yeah.
have problems. And then that
Yeah.
nowadays that they're starting to accept Black women in their hair, that again, like my whole 12 years was spent, I spent a lot of money on my hair so that I can stay in regulations. So, you know, now that they're redefining natural and all of that, like, but I never like dyed my hair, you know, these wild colors and stuff, but to keep my hair in a ponytail and do all this stuff, like there's things that I gotta do to my hair, especially
and
I gotta go to PT, right? I gotta go to PT 3 times a week, which all that added sweat and putting that hat on my head every day, that's a totally different
wow.
Oh, that's a totally different ballpark. And see, that's where I will say I'm happy that the military's finally worked in that direction, because you have that old tradition military to where it's like they didn't care and listen, and that wasn't right, because like you said, depending on your race, that affects, like you said, from hair to shaving to, you know, if you have a skin condition, that kind of stuff, it matters. And then so when they were when you're pretty much told, I don't care how much you have to spend, or I don't care if you're in pain, that's not right. that's not right at all. And I'm happy that the military is moving in a positive direction that way. I'm more like with the uniform, keeping it up and making it look nice and that kind of stuff. But if you want to go on that side of the world, then yes, I think the military is doing a great job transitioning into actually accommodating that and understanding it's different for everybody and not everyone's the same. So that's a positive note.
Yeah. I came in a long time ago to our last panel. You put me in with your grandma, but I came in a long time ago, and so Air Force or uniform requirements, of course, they're different, you know. And so when I came in, and like Miss Jean's husband, you know, when they came in all the way up until when I was in, you know, at least for Air Force, we still had to iron our uniform. We had to iron that crease in our uniform. And if that thing went sharp, I had to shine my boots. Like I had to do all that stuff. And now these uniforms is wash and wear. So
and some things are sewn in.
Yeah.
And you know what's interesting is that with the honor guard, you still have to polish your shoes like you did way back when. And I think they do it for the honor guard. It's more just a tradition and acknowledging kind of where they started. So it's like they're adjusting and they're changing some things to, like, I'll say this. So if you ever saw someone in the honor guard not in their blues or their greens, and you saw them in the regular OCPs or ABUs, or, you know, if depending on how far you go back, you'll notice that the honor guard at the bottom of their boot, it's really round and sharp. Well, how they did that was they cut coffee cans, put duct tape around the coffee cans, put them in their pants, and that's what created that sharp roundness. Well, they found and they realized it's not part of their regulation. It's not really necessary. So they actually just got rid of that, which a lot of people are happy for, because if you were to fall with that coffee can on your leg, it's those little things that don't realize how they do that. I remember where I'm just like, if you cut yourself, so, you know, and that's why they put the duct tape, but little things like that they're changing for the better. But certain things they keep just more for tradition, which isn't too bad, but there's definitely a change from 10, 15 years ago versus now.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I hit that one too. I think that at 1 hour, I don't want to hold y'all too much longer today. I got some more stuff written down, but I think 1 hour today is good enough. So I got a new question that goes with my show now. If we were having breakfast, guys, you know, it was pretty much a regional thing. Would you be having pancakes or would you be having waffles?
Jean, do you know? I gotta think on this for a sec.
I'd have pancakes. Why?
Pancakes?
Yeah.
I think I do waffles. Unless they were crepes, then I do crepes. But if not, waffles.
Crepes. Oh,
those are
What
the
would you
thin
do?
pancakes.
I know.
So I mean, but I would probably do waffles. We have a waffle maker out here, so.
What would you do?
Pancakes. Pancakes all the time. Pancakes. I had crepes in France. I didn't like them. I did not like them at all.
They're a little different.
Yeah. But so I would like to thank y'all for coming in and joining me today. Definitely it was fun. It was fun.
Thank you for doing this. This is you brought up some really good questions and topics.
Yeah, so I'm gonna hit this share screen and hit this new outro of mine. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. I would like to thank my guests for joining me, or simply thank you for watching the pre-recorded episode. No matter what your birth order is, how you self-identify, and whether you like pancakes or waffles. If this is the first time today, I want you to know that you are loved. You were put here for a purpose that only you can fulfill. Until next time, take care of yourself. Be sure that you like and share the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. This is RealRam